Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it is time for my 2025 UFL Week 8 game picks. This week is a big deal. Why? Not one, not two, not three, but all four playoff spots can be clinched this week. Now, upon looking at other stuff, it's important to note that both the DC Defenders and the Michigan Panthers cannot host a playoff game this week, meaning we could find out who is hosting both playoff games this week. It's pretty wild. So, that's a big deal for a lot of these teams, whether it be teams like Houston or Arlington who are literally doing everything they can to survive, or teams like Michigan, DC, who can clinch by just winning this week. So it's a big deal. So let's get started by looking at the first two games, or technically the first two. I'll get to that in a second. The Showboats Brahmas Super Tank Bowl that is going to be tonight at 8 p.m. EST. I will be doing a live play-by-play for this game at 7:45. Be looking for that. And the first of the two regional broadcast games of the Michigan Panthers Houston Roughnecks Saturday at 1 p.m. EST. The Stallions versus the Battlehawks will also be at that 1 p.m. time slot. It is the regional broadcast, so yes, that's back. Now, as for the Tank Bowl, this is a tough one to call. It really is, because of the fact that what Jim Turner said is all three quarterbacks will be taking snaps the last 3 weeks of the season. You have no idea what that really means. The Brahmas are more than likely just going to keep on trotting out Kevin Hogan. He might be back next year to be the QB. There's a lot of questions with the Brahmas, right? Is Party going to be their head coach next year? Is Wade Phillips fully done? Does this team need an overhaul? Look, I made the eliminated video for both these teams. It's a rough one. What it comes down to is, again, I just give my game picks and compare them to the betting picks. My suggestion, if you're going to be gambling, do not bet on this game unless you really believe something. This could be any kind of game. This could be a super low-scoring 12-3 game that either team wins. It could be a 30-35 shootout. For the sake of what I think this game does hit the over. I'm just going to call it Brahmas win 25-24. This is purely for my overall game picks. Like I said, this is a game that is insanely tough to call. It's hard to pick a winner here. It really is. I would not be shocked if the overall spread heading into the game gets lower to like 1, maybe even 0.5, which we do actually have a 0.5 in this one. It's just, I can't really pick a winner legitimately. Because of the fact that both these teams have so many similar issues, the fact that the Brahmas are a worse team overall, but last week they played a much better game. So it's a weird one. Do the Brahmas give you one of their good performances? Because they've given you 3 this season, right? The Panthers and the Defenders twice. If that Brahmas offense shows up, Showboats are probably going to lose. But the Showboats, historically this season, have been a much more consistent team. It's a weird one. The fact this game could be anyway is insane, but I do think we see more than 36.5 points scored, mainly because of the fact that both these teams have nothing to lose, right? It's a tank bowl. I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this with, of course, the, Showboats versus the Roughnecks last year. We saw this with the Panthers versus the Maulers in 2022. You get these insane tank bowls that they might make something about getting the number 1 overall pick, but overall, I think that San Antonio will win this by 1. Just saying that, I literally have no real idea. This is a pick'em game. Now, the Panthers Roughnecks. This is where it gets spicy. So if the Panthers win this game, both Michigan and Birmingham clinch a playoff spot. Because of the fact that Birmingham beat Houston twice, they hold tiebreaker with the same record, meaning that if Michigan wins this, there's no way Houston can make the playoffs. Now, as I also mentioned previously, if Houston just wins out, they make the playoffs. So they are very much still alive. Now, this is a 6.5 point spread. The over-under is 43.5. This is a tough one. But what it comes down to is that when I look at these two teams, I see a team that just blew a massive lead. I look at what happened to Arlington after they did it. They kind of faltered, and they've been on this just downward trajectory ever since losing to DC. But they've kept games close. I think the same thing happens with Houston. I think Michigan wins 24-18. I do think Houston keeps this close. I think this Houston team is good enough to keep these games close, but what it really comes down to is Michigan has been rallying around everybody on the team despite the injuries. Frank Gidna just went down, which sucks. They did just get Matt Colburn back, though. So now, in theory, they're going to be running with a Toa combo with Matt Colburn. That's what you would imagine. If they have that, that makes this already insane ground game even better. Because you're bringing back one of the top 5 running backs in the league and pairing him up with a guy who's become a top 3 running back in the league, arguably number 1, plus Bryce Perkins, who is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the league. That is going to make you a very scary offense as long as Colburn is healthy. I don't remember for sure if he's active, but the fact that he is going to be back at all is a big deal. Yes, losing Gidna hurts, but you've already been playing with a lot of guys being out. Javin White being out, Breland Speaks being out. I think they get the job done here. They clinch a playoff spot. Sucks they can't host a playoff game, but they're going to win this game. For the sake of pride, I do think Michigan is still going to play for that number 1 overall seed in the USFL. And to get that, they need to win this game. But I don't think we hit over 43.5 points. With how the Panthers played last week and how Houston played in the second half last week, I just feel like we're not going to see a ton of scoring in this game, despite the fact that you would think that there would be because of injuries. Overall, 24-18. Now, the second games, of course, the second of the regional games, like I mentioned earlier, the Stallions Battlehawks, which I will be doing a live play-by-play on. I checked my broadcast, barring that it changed without telling me, I have the Stallions Battlehawk game. So we'll be doing that, a live play-by-play. And then we have Arlington, D.C. on Sunday at 12 p.m. EST. Now, Birmingham, St. Louis. For the sake of the playoffs, this game doesn't really matter all that much. It does matter more for the Battlehawks, obviously, as the Battlehawks need to win this game to be able to clinch, but they also have to rely on D.C. winning. So, in terms of a matters for playoffs this specific week, this is the second to least important game. Obviously, the Tank Bowl matters the least, but this is a pick'em. When you come at a 0.5 spread, it's a pick'em. Do you think the Battlehawks win or do you think the Stallions win? Over under 39.5, and it's just, it makes sense. Because of the fact that overall, the Stallions, to most people, I still have the Battlehawks above them in the power ranking, but to most people, the Stallions are the better team. But this game is in St. Louis. You don't think Birmingham is insanely good. Normally, it's like a 3-point spread is what's given to the home team. So, half-point spread honestly makes sense. I think St. Louis gets the job done. I think they win 27-25. The Stallions' injuries at some point will catch up to them. And I think this is the game that catches up to them. Yes, Magoo is off IR, but he's still inactive. They're starting Jamar Smith. Now, it will be a great story to see them win with Jamar at quarterback for the full game, but I think St. Louis gets the job done. I think they win 27-25 in a higher scoring game. What it comes down to is if you're St. Louis, you're seeing all these people basically say your team isn't that good. The amount of people I've seen, not like as hated, but legit not even view them as a top 4 team in the league, or at least top 3, is wild. This is a team that, they feel like one of the only teams I've seen in recent memory that gets punished for winning games. Like, they've been on a win streak, but for some reason every week they win, people move them down the power rankings. I don't get why people move DC above them when DC just played the Brahmas, and the Battlehawks played the Showboats, and the Battlehawks actually had a much more impressive win, considering the fact that it took Teamu's best game of the season to beat the Brahmas by 1 score, whereas Max Duggan played another poor game, not awful, but poor game, and they still won by 10. The Battlehawks understand this, and they want revenge for last year. Last year was an incredible game that they ended up losing by 1 score. They have the chip on their shoulder there. The Stallions won at home. The Battlehawks are going to win this one at home, 27-25. Arlington, D.C. Arlington's fighting for the playoff lives. This is the win they really need to get. Win this game, they have a very real shot at making the playoffs. If they lose this game, they're eliminated. So, the spread is -3 DC. It is in DC, and the over-under is 42.5. This is a tough one, but this is also important to note because this is very real possibility, the last matchup between Jordan Teamu and Luis Perez. I know they said it last year. When you've had that inkling that it might be and it keeps going, it probably is. So this is a big deal for that. These are 2 spring football icons that are going against each other. What it really comes down to is I think Arlington wins this. I think they win 33-28. The reason is Teamu had his best game of the year, and they barely beat San Antonio. If Perez just does what Kevin Hogan and that Brahmas offense was able to do last week, they should win this game. It's as simple as that. The DC defense is still a weaker unit. Joe Wallace had an incredible game. But when you look at how well Kevin Hogan played in that game for the most part, if Perez plays like Luis Perez and 80% in the way that Hogan played, they're going to win this game. Yes, I know they have some injury issues, but overall, the defenders, Teamu has to play like he did last week to beat this Renegades team. Because the first time they played, the Renegades were the better team. They just choked it at the end with, the offense not doing anything after the interception. I think they're going to get revenge for it. they're getting a chance to kind of rewrite that comeback. If they win this game and go on to somehow make the playoffs over DC, nobody's going to really remember them blowing that lead to DC, and they know that. If you're Stoops, if you're Perez, this is a defining game for your spring football legacy. I know Stoops, of course, is a college legend, but if this ends up being his final stop as a coach, and this is his last year in Arlington, and he's going to be remembered as a guy who the last 2 years of his coaching career was the guy that was responsible for a ton of chokes, that's not good. Luis Perez, the king of spring, remembered the last 2 years of his career for choking a lot of games, that's not good. You need to go out with a fight. They're going to win this game. They're going to win a one-score game. I know it's shocking to say that, but they're going to win a one-score game. They're going to win it by over 3, which again doesn't even matter because they're +3, but they're going to win it by about 5 points, and they're going to get the job done. Arlington beats DC to stay alive in the playoff race. Now, as for the overall record, last week was, I think, the best week of the season. Ended up going 2 or 3, I believe, in all but one game, and then one game I did get perfect. The DC San Antonio game, I did predict that one perfectly. I thought it was going to be like a one-score game. That was a higher scoring one. It ended up being. I got Houston's score right again. Didn't even realize it. But yes, once again, I correctly predicted Houston's score. I honestly think that all 3 of my perfect team scores are Houston. Again, I don't remember off the top of my head. I know at least 2 of them are, but I think all 3 of them might be Houston, which is hilarious. But we're actually catching up to last year's total. We get one more perfect team score prediction. I will have matched last year's total of 4. And game betting, getting 3 for 3, technically like 1.5, so I can't really exactly get that, obviously. But I can get pretty much what I had last year. Overall, we somehow are positive in the spread and negative in the over-under, which again is not like me normally. Moneyline, like I've said, most people's overall picks, just who wins, aren't great this year. So 16-12, I'll honestly take that. But I'm more impressed that I've gotten that spread back to being positive, and overall it's actually tied now, 34-34 with 3 pushes. So we take those. Now again, we'll see how it goes this week. If we can keep this kind of pace up, we'll have a really good end of the season. Recap, looking back at how well I did this year. So we'll see about that one. But overall, this has been ZomFox. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified about any videos. Think about becoming a community member, because today's community member exclusive video, I believe comes out today, is the biggest one. It is my top 10 all-time NBA players that was inspired by the past live stream. So if you want to see that video, you gotta be a member for at least 99 cents a month. You get 6 team emojis that are exclusive to use in the chat and the comments. You get extra benefits like seeing certain posts that are exclusive to you and other things. And as always, guys, have a great night.